Three men, three separate moments, three decisions made in darkness, under pressure, without sleep, without certainty. Any one of them makes a different choice, and you are not here. None of us are. October 1962. America looks like a dream someone carefully arranged. Lawn sprinklers turning in the afternoon heat, cars long as boats gliding down main streets, fallout shelter signs bolted to the sides of schools where children practice duck and cover drills, as if a wooden desk could stop the sun from arriving early. Beneath the surface, something is coiling. The Cold War isn't cold. It is a held breath, a finger resting on a trigger. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, each holding enough nuclear warheads to turn the other into ash and glass, each watching the other for the slightest flinch. And then, on the morning of October 14th, a flinch is spotted. 14 miles above the island of Cuba, a U-2 spy plane banks through the thin air and its cameras begin clicking. The pilot doesn't know what he's photographing. The analysts who developed the film 2 days later, they know immediately. Soviet nuclear missiles, 90 miles from the coast of Florida, already being assembled, already being aimed. The clock starts now. President John F. Kennedy is 45 years old and has been in office less than 2 years. He is not a naive man. He survived the Bay of Pigs disaster. He looked Khrushchev in the eye in Vienna. But when his national security advisor, McGeorge Bundy, delivers the U-2 photographs on the morning of October 16th, Kennedy goes very still. He assembles a secret committee, XCOM they'll call it, 14 men. Some want an airstrike immediately, take out the missile sites before they're operational. Clean, decisive, military. Kennedy listens. Then he asks the question no one wants to answer. And then what? Because an airstrike doesn't end the crisis. It begins it. Soviet troops are already on the ground in Cuba. An American strike kills Soviet soldiers. Khrushchev retaliates. And then the math becomes apocalyptic. Kennedy chooses a naval blockade instead. A quarantine, they call it publicly, because blockade is technically an act of war. American warships form a ring around Cuba. Nothing goes in, nothing comes out. And the world holds its breath watching Soviet cargo ships steam toward that line in the water. On October 22nd, Kennedy goes on national television. He tells the American public what the government has known for 6 days. He speaks carefully, but the word he uses, nuclear, lands in living rooms across the country like a stone dropped into still water. Families begin quietly buying canned food. Gas stations report runs. Churches fill on weekday afternoons. In Moscow, Nikita Khrushchev is furious, then afraid, then calculating. He sends letters, sometimes threatening, sometimes almost plaintive. In one message he writes to Kennedy, "We and you ought not now to pull on the ends of the rope in which you have tied the knot of war." The Soviets blink first. Their cargo ships slow, they stop, they turn around. The world exhales. But the crisis is not over, not even close. 400 feet beneath the Atlantic, Soviet submarine B-59 is dying slowly and its crew doesn't know why. The submarine has been at sea for weeks, running in brutal heat, temperatures in some compartments reaching 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Men are fainting. The CO2 scrubbers are failing. They haven't been able to surface to receive radio transmissions for days, which means they have no idea what is happening above them. They do not know about the blockade. They do not know about the photographs. They do not know that the world above the water is teetering. What they know is this: American warships have found them. And the Americans are dropping depth charges. The explosions aren't meant to destroy the submarine. They're practice grenades, a signal to surface, standard naval procedure. But B-59's crew doesn't know that. The hull shudders, the lights flicker, men look at each other in the red emergency glow and think the same thought. The war has started, and we are already behind enemy lines. The submarine's captain, Valentin Savitsky, makes a decision. B-59 is carrying a nuclear torpedo, a single weapon capable of destroying an entire carrier group. Savitsky believes they are already at war. He believes the Soviet Union may already be under attack. He orders the torpedo armed. Under Soviet protocol, a nuclear launch requires agreement from 3 senior officers. Savitsky has his vote. The political officer, Ivan Maslenikov, gives his. 2 out of 3. 1 man remains. His name is Vasily Arkhipov. Arkhipov is 36 years old. He is the flotilla commander aboard B-59, technically equal in rank to the captain, which is the only reason his vote matters at all. He has survived a near-catastrophic nuclear reactor accident aboard another submarine the previous year. He has looked at death before. He knows what it looks like. He knows that panic and certainty can be the same face wearing different expressions. He refuses. He argues. He says they cannot be certain war has started. He says they must surface. He says that firing a nuclear torpedo into a United States carrier group, without confirmed orders, without communication with Moscow, is not a decision they have the right to make in the dark. Savitsky is screaming at him. The crew is terrified, exhausted, half delirious from the heat. The depth charges keep coming. Arkhipov does not move. He holds the line. B-59 surfaces. The Americans are baffled. They didn't even know the Soviets had nuclear weapons aboard. The submarine is allowed to withdraw. It limps home. Nobody publishes a word about it for decades. On the other side of the world, a young U.S. Air Force officer named John Borden is pulling a routine alert duty at Missile Launch Site No. 1 in Okinawa. The base is equipped with MACE missiles, cruise missiles carrying nuclear warheads, targeted at China, the Soviet Union, North Korea. On the night of October 28th, near the peak of the crisis, something unprecedented happens. A courier arrives with launch orders, the correct codes, the right paperwork. The missiles are to be launched. 4 missiles, multiple targets. Bordney and his crew begin the launch sequence, and then someone pauses. The orders authorize launch for their specific site, but the standing protocol is unambiguous. A launch order requires presidential authorization transmitted through the chain of command, confirmed from multiple command centers simultaneously. These orders have come through only one channel, and they have not been confirmed. Borden stops. He tells his crew to stand down. The officer who delivered the orders insists. Borden refuses. He holds his position, literally, his hand near his sidearm, ready to physically stop anyone who completes the sequence. The order is eventually traced back to a miscommunication. No presidential authorization existed. No launch had been authorized. 4 missiles aimed at Soviet and Chinese territory, in the middle of the most dangerous moment of the Cold War, came within one officer's refusal of launching without orders. John Borden did not speak publicly about this incident until 2015. This is what October 27, 1962 looked like in real time. Arkhipov is arguing against a nuclear torpedo launch on B-59. A U-2 spy plane accidentally strays into Soviet airspace over Alaska. Soviet fighters scramble. American fighters scramble to intercept the Soviet fighters. Nuclear-armed aircraft in the air on both sides minutes from contact. A surface-to-air missile in Cuba shoots down an American U-2. The pilot is killed. Kennedy's military commanders urge immediate retaliation. Kennedy refuses. The ex-com room is airless with tension. General Curtis LeMay looks at Kennedy and says what he truly believes, that the blockade is appeasement, that airstrikes are the only answer. Kennedy stares at him. These brass hats have one great advantage, Kennedy tells an aide privately. If we listen to them and do what they want us to do, none of us will be alive later to tell them that they were wrong. He does not authorize airstrikes. He does something almost no one knows about for 25 years. His brother Robert Kennedy meets secretly with Soviet Ambassador Anatoly Dobrynin. The deal is quiet and asymmetrical. The Soviets remove their missiles from Cuba, publicly. The Americans remove their Jupiter missiles from Turkey, secretly, months later, deniably. Khrushchev gets what he actually wanted. Kennedy preserves his public image. The world never knows. The missiles in Cuba begin coming down on October 28th. The crisis officially is over. The newspapers called it a great American victory. Kennedy was steady, Khrushchev blinked. The missiles left Cuba. What the newspapers didn't print, the Jupiter missiles in Turkey were gone within 6 months, quietly, exactly as promised. What they didn't print, Vasily Arkhipov's name. He returned home to the Soviet Union, was never publicly celebrated, and died in 1998. His role in preventing nuclear war wasn't confirmed until documents were declassified in the early 2000s. The historian Thomas Blanton, who helped uncover the story, said simply, "A man called Vasily Arkhipov saved the world." What they didn't print, John Borden's story. He lived with it for 53 years before anyone outside his immediate chain of command heard it. And what the declassified documents have since revealed is the thing that should change how every one of us understands that October. It wasn't one near miss, it was simultaneous, overlapping, multiple independent systems, a submarine, an airbase, a rogue U-2 flight, trigger-ready generals, all nearly crossing the threshold at the same moment, without knowledge of each other, without coordination, without any single command that could have stopped all of them at once. The world did not survive the Cuban Missile Crisis because of brilliant diplomacy alone. It survived because three men, in three separate moments of darkness and pressure and noise, chose restraint when every instinct and every order was pushing them toward fire. We teach the Cuban Missile Crisis as a story about two leaders and 13 days. But it was really a story about what happens at the very bottom of the chain of command, in a submarine, on an airbase at the edge of the world, in the hands of people whose names we never learned, making decisions that no protocol fully prepared them for. The question that stays with you, the one that doesn't let go, isn't whether Kennedy was brave enough or whether Khrushchev was rational enough. It's this: how many Vasily Arkhipovs are out there right now, in situations we don't know about, making decisions we'll never read about, and how certain are we that every single one of them will hold the line? If history is your obsession, subscribe to the Time Thread.